Hello, I'm Anne Frisch, a member of the committee that developed the self-guided walking riding tour for Upper Sandusky. Upper Sandusky is a historic town incorporated in 1848. The committee that put the walking tour together wanted to highlight this town history and share it with visitors, as well as residents of the town who might not be aware of their heritage. The walking tour brochure was a collaborative project of Upper Sandusky townspeople. Committee members who participated in the project are listed on the slide. Various organizations, such as the Wyandotte County Historical Society, the Visitors Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Tracers, were represented on the committee. Other members were interested townspeople, some of whom had lived in or do live in historic houses in Upper Sandusky. Diana Swartz very generously donated the pen and ink illustrations. The group began meeting at the end of June 2006. The finished brochure came back from the printers right before Thanksgiving 2006. It is available at the Wyandotte County Visitors Bureau or the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce tells me that it is the most requested brochure given out to visitors. Upper Sandusky has a variety of architectural styles. For the most part, the houses are kept up and their historic value is recognized. Some structures in town date to the 1830s. At least one historic building, the Old Mission Church, was built in 1824. Houses or buildings featured on the walking tour were selected based on the following criteria. The house represented one of several types of architecture present in town. Most of those date before 1900. The house, or one of the owners of the house, played a significant role in the history of Upper Sandusky. The houses were fairly close or a walkable distance apart in the same area of town. Information on the house was available, or the house was in the South Sandusky Avenue National Historic District. House number 1 on the walking tour is the Wyandotte County Museum. The Wyandotte County Museum is the only historic house on the tour that can be viewed both inside and out. Interestingly enough, the museum is also the only historic house on the tour that is not currently a residence. The museum was built in 1852 for Isaac and Leafy Fowler Beery, who were married that year. Isaac was one of 4 Beery brothers who moved to Upper Sandusky from Fairfield County, Ohio. Isaac and twin brother Anthony, or Brooks Beery, as he was known, came to Upper in 1850. They built a general store in the Beery block of Wyandotte Avenue, where the Baker Financial Services and Star Theater entrance are now. The store was a very successful business. Isaac also owned part interest in a grain elevator and was a stockholder in the Wyandotte County Bank. Isaac and Leafy Fowler, daughter of physician Stephen Fowler, had 4 children. The home was later occupied by one of the Beery daughters, Leafy Beery McConnell, and her family. The house is an example of Victorian Second Empire architecture characterized by the mansard roof. The attic dormers and other windows in the house have strong hoods with highly decorative carving. The south side bay window and porch have decorative wrought iron work, and there is a wrought iron fence surrounding 2 sides of the museum grounds. The bay window on the south side of the house is a later addition, probably around 1900, as the house originally had a flat side with no windows where the bay is now. The McConnell family donated the home to the Wyandotte County Historical Society, and it opened as a museum in 1962. McConnell descendants continue to donate to the museum and visit Upper Sandusky. Walking west down Johnson Street from the museum, we find the old Carnegie Library. It was built in 1914 and was one of 111 Carnegie libraries built in Ohio. This building housed the Upper Sandusky Library from 1914 through 1986, 72 years. In 1986, the library collection had outgrown the space available, and the current library was built. The Carnegie Library was not Upper's first library. Upper Sandusky's first public library was established in 1886 and started in the Methodist Episcopal Church down the street from this library. It was known as the Harris Library. $2,000 was raised through subscriptions, and 1,400 books were purchased that contained, quote, works of rare excellence in literature, morality, and religion, end quote. For an additional $1 per person, you would have the privilege of coming and reading any time the library was open, which was 2 afternoons a week on Tuesday and Thursday. Continuing west on Johnson Street to the corner of Johnson and South 8th Street, we find 3 historic houses in the 100 block of South 8th Street. This photo comes from the 1913 History of Wyandotte County, Ohio, and shows the 3 houses that are on the historic Northside portion of the walking tour. Although it is a little difficult to see details in the picture, the houses look remarkably similar today to how they looked in 1913. 134 South 8th Street was built in 1880 as a parsonage for the Methodist Church. In the 1913 photo, the front porch steps were on the left side with a gable on the porch roof over the steps. Today, the steps are in the center of the porch, and the gable on the porch roof has been removed. Other than those changes, and one window replaced by a front door, the house looks just like it did in 1913. The house at 128 South 8th Street was built in 1880 by Robert McKelly. There were 2 Robert McKellys, father and son. Both were prominent citizens of Upper Sandusky, and I do not know which Robert built this house. The first Robert McKelly was an attorney and then probate judge of Wyandotte County, was a director of the Pennsylvania Fort Wayne Chicago Railroad, and then was elected an Ohio State senator. The son, Robert A. McKelly, was county auditor. He owned a hardware business in town with Curtis B. Hare and was a member of the Upper Sandusky School Board during the building of the Union School Building in 1883. Either McKelly could have been the builder. The house's complex shapes and elaborate detail are characteristic of Victorian Queen Anne architecture. The top of the front porch is original, as seen in the 1913 photo. However, the bottom of the porch has been replaced by the brickwork seen here. The original look was much lighter, with wooden spindles trimming the bottom of the porch. The north side of the house has a very interesting keyhole window. 124 South 8th Street started out as a mirror image of the house at 134 South 8th. In 1902, however, the house received a modernization and was rebuilt in the Queen Anne Victorian style that we see today. The hipped Italianate roof was removed and replaced with a steeply pitched roof with gables. An ornamental palladium window was installed on the front gable. A new wraparound porch was added with a beautiful porte-cochere on the alley side or north side of the house. If you look closely at the bones or shapes of both houses, however, you can see that they are indeed the same, with the square main part containing 3 upper windows with the same shape and a side extension with duplicate windows. St. Paul Lutheran Church is a Gothic-style church built in 1927. The original church was on the corner of North Sandusky and Bigelow Street and was for many years Mennigan's store, gas station, and bicycle shop. At the same time as St. Paul Lutheran Church was being built, the church purchased the historic house to the north from Brinkerhoff to be used as a parsonage. The house is one of 5 Beery homes in Upper. In 1847, the Honorable George W. Beery was the first of 4 brothers to move to Upper Sandusky from near Fairfield County, Ohio. The Beery brothers were George, Isaac, Anthony called Brooks, and Thomas. Mr. George Beery owned the block on North 8th Street from Walker Street to Finley Street, and the houses shown on the slide were either built for a Beery brother or a Beery offspring. George Beery had 3 daughters and a son. He practiced law here until 1862, when he was appointed Internal Revenue Assessor for the 5th Congressional District by President Abraham Lincoln. Upon being removed from office by President Andrew Johnson, Mr. Beery returned to Upper and organized the Wyandotte County Bank. George Beery is credited with helping to bring several railroads, east-west and north-south, to Upper. Although new to the county, he was the only person to stand up to John Kerry, known as Old Invincible, to bring the Pittsburgh-Fort Wayne-Chicago Railroad to Upper Sandusky instead of Cary. In addition, George helped organize the Wyandotte County Agricultural Society, the organization that runs our annual fair. The St. Paul Lutheran Parsonage was built for Thomas Beery. The house is Victorian stick architecture. It has a steeply pitched roof and gables. There are decorative trusses at the apex of the gable. Thomas Beery was the youngest of a family of 12. Of the 4 Beery sons who moved to Upper, Thomas was the least successful of the brothers. He had many different occupations, and at one time sold the Brinkerhoff patented corn husker with, quote, remarkable results, end quote. I don't know if this meant that Thomas Beery was an excellent salesman and sold many of the corn huskers, or if the corn huskers produced remarkable results. Sadly, all of Thomas Beery's children died before age 22, and the house was sold to the Brinkerhoff family sometime before 1896. A.W. Brinkerhoff was another interesting citizen of Upper. In 1856, he took out the first patent issued to a resident of Wyandotte County. A.W. had been in poor health since a child and had engaged in a number of less than profitable businesses when he decided to sell his patented inventions to explore and examine the rectum to cure piles. This was highly successful, and in one year, 1883 through 84, he generated $22,000 in income. In 1926, the Brinkerhoff home was purchased by St. Paul Lutheran Church. The house at 206 North 8th Street was built for Anthony or Brooks Beery, the twin brother of Isaac Beery. Brooks could not afford the house and did not own it long. It is a mirror image of the Wyandotte County Museum. Here are the twin houses side by side, although in different seasons. Look at the roofline, number and type of dormer windows, and side chimneys on both houses, identical. The roof of the North 8th Street house retains its original slate shingles, while the roof on the museum has been replaced with more modern asphalt shingles. It was also originally slate. The bay window on the lower south side of the museum is not original. The south side of the museum, when built, looked like the south side of the house on North 8th Street. The house at 216 North 8th Street was built as a wedding gift for George's daughter, Julia Beery Gordon, in 1873 through 75. The house is described as Carpenter Gothic. This was high Victorian architecture, distinguished by the steeply pitched roof, decorated verge boards, full-width porch, and flattened Gothic arches. Some of you may be asking, what's a verge board? A verge board is decorative boarding, sometimes called barge board, along a projecting roof eave. It is often carved or scrolled and is highly ornamental. On this house, it appears to be along the porch roof. This was the first house on the street and belonged to George Beery. In addition to this residence, George owned 5 acres along the street and a farm. The house is Italianate architecture. From the late 1840s to 1890, this style of architecture achieved huge popularity in the United States. Its popularity was due to being suitable for many different building materials and budgets, as well as the development of cast iron and pressed metal technology, making the production more efficient of decorative elements such as brackets and cornices. However, the style was superseded in popularity in the late 1870s by the Queen Anne and Colonial Revival styles. Key visual components of the Italianate style include low-pitched or flat roofs, frequently hipped, projecting eaves supported by highly decorated corbels, cornice structures, pedimented windows and doors, tall first-floor windows, and angled bay windows. The George Beery House has served in various capacities, from a nursing home to a group home. It is now a single-family home. On the corner of North 8th and Finley Streets is Transfiguration of the Lord Catholic Church, number 6 in the churches section. Catholic families originally worshipped in the John Gaw House on the west corner of North 7th and Bigelow Streets until the first Catholic church was built in 1857 on Guthrie Street. I don't know where on Guthrie, as the church history did not give an address. Guthrie Street was a plank street at that time with no street lights. Getting to and from that church was very difficult, and the congregation was increasing in number, so a new church was badly needed. The church in the picture, originally named St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, had its cornerstone laid in 1874. Because of the railroad panic of 1873 through 1877, funds were not available to continue the building for a few years. The interior was usable in 1879, but it was not dedicated until 1880. The picture shows the church as it was originally built, with a very high steeple. Looking at the old and current pictures of the church, you can see how much higher the steeple was originally. On May 30th, 1887, the steeple was hit by lightning during a heavy storm and fell across Finley Street into the yard of the house across from the church. The insurance companies paid only part of the loss. The spire was not rebuilt. The tower on which the spire stood was repaired and is the current steeple. The church is Romanesque architecture, called in the church history Romanic Ionic, with side buttresses. The stained glass windows were all donated. The main altar, completed in 1892, is Gothic style, as are the two side altars. Stations were added in 1900. The rectory next door was built in 1885. When the steeple from the church fell, it ended up in the yard of this house. The amazing thing is that the house was not damaged. The house at 226 West Finley Street was built in 1853 through 55. It originally sat on a large lot with a barn. It has the original summer kitchen, which you can just barely see behind the tree at the back of the house. The front porch is not original. The house is Italianate in design, with decorative brackets and very pretty detail work under the eaves. In contrast to the eaves, the rectangular windows have plain stone lintels and sills. Next to St. Peter's School on North 8th Street is another house completed in 1853. This was not built for a Beery family member. The house at one time belonged to the Billhart family, an important family in Upper Sandusky history. Dr. Adolf Billhart emigrated from Saxony, Germany in 1858. He came directly to Upper Sandusky, where he practiced medicine until 1866. At that time, he opened a drugstore, and that became his major business. In 1874, Dr. Billhart purchased this home from J.H. Anderson. We're not sure who built the house. The house is Italianated architecture with original porches and columns. The front porch originally had decorative ironwork on the roof. In 1894, Dr. Billhart was appointed consul to Russia by President Grover Cleveland. He remained in Russia for 3 years, until 1897. Tom and Kathy Krieger own the house now. Tom says that Billhart descendants still visit the house and have their picture taken on the front porch. This concludes the Northside portion of the presentation. However, the walking tour brochure lists additional Northside historic homes.